Welcome to the Philosophical Fools podcast. I'm your host, Lucas J. Hunton, also known as Luke Using Force, the Absolute Zero, the Greasy Gringo, the Fool Rubber Alchemist. Hi. So, what is a philosophical fool? Well, that's me. And a lot of the people I know and I tend to hang out with are kind of the same thing. Well, some of them are just philosophical and some of them are just fools. But see, the thing is, the word fool has been sort of bastardized over the years. I mean, nowadays it means someone who's dumb, an idiot. 'Tis better to be considered a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt, correct? You know, that's a funny phrase, because, if you never ask any questions, you'll never learn anything, and then you'll stay stupid. If you ask a stupid question, and people think you're a fool, well, at least you are more knowledgeable. Maybe it's the fact that looking like a fool is the courageous thing. I don't know. But basically, I just want to find out what makes people tick. Sitting around being philosophical, and also being foolish is what kind of makes me tick. Both of those things, i.e. the philosophical fool. It's kind of interesting too, because the fool long ago was the Court Jester, right? Court Jester had many talents, and they could sing, they could tell stories, they could sometimes juggle. Some of them would be in bazaars and fairs and things like that, and just be on the street corner. And I don't know how respected they were, but I know that entertainment was not in abundance back then. I'm talking medieval times, Shoot, there might have even been fools back in Roman times. There probably were. Well, maybe not. They seem to like combat a lot more. Modern day fools are kind of like actors and comedians. Let's see, a fool back in the day, you wanted to be working for the richest person you could, so the king's fool was the king of fools. That doesn't necessarily mean he was the best one. I'm sure there were other ones that were like, Harold is the king's fool. His juggling is subpar. He doesn't know how to do crowd work. Ugh. But the jester, he was one of the only people who could live like a nobleman, but not be a nobleman. He could live in the castle. And I'm sure he had to practice and obviously perform, but what else was he doing on the other 18 hours, probably 20 hours of the day? Oh, messing around with the kitchen staff, going to get some food, hanging out, probably playing with the maids. I'm sure it was fun. And eventually, we get to this time now where the fool is the dumb person. How did it turn from, being just a straight up entertainer to being someone who's dumb? Well, I would think that it would be something like people didn't like the fool too much, especially if he made fun of you. I'm gonna burn up here. Especially if he made fun of you, right? If you were a nobleman and let's say the king was talking to his fool before the feast, and all of a sudden he said something funny about some nobleman. Oh, that's hilarious. You must say that at the feast tonight. And the fool's like, all right, whatever. You're my guy. You know, it doesn't really matter what any of these other people think of me as long as you like me. That's all I care about. And the thing is, the fool was the king's guy, and the king was the fool's guy. And really, once that king is no longer around, it's very possible that fool's no longer around. Because whoever takes over probably had their own, in their own castle, that they really liked. So, in essence, the fool was the only person that truly wanted the king to stay where he was. And because of that, he was one of the only people the king could actually trust. Right? I mean, Sir James has been looking at me weird for the past few months. I took those farmlands from him because he didn't know how to grow potatoes. And I don't know, ever since then, he's been staring at me, strange fool. See if you can find something out. I mean, really, and if people thought he was dumb, maybe the fool could kind of go around and be a bit of a spy, right? Seems like a great job. Of course, it kind of got split over the years. I mean, you have your clowns, you have your actors, you have your other circus performers. I mean, in carny folk, I'm not sure carny folk are fools. They're just trying to make a buck by ripping people most of the time. That doesn't seem like a fool thing. I mean, maybe the ringleader, the one who could sort of bring everything together. He could have been maybe a fool, but the rest of them just pieces of fool. Not even the fool. One other interesting thing about the fool is that, how many times can I say that in one podcast, huh? Is someone counting? Don't do a drinking game. You'll die. The Fool is actually the first card of the major Arcana in the tarot cards, right? The tarot cards, right? Yeah, those things. Those, they tell the future. Quaint. I know a lot of people are like, oh, geez, here he goes into this weird, what are you going to tell us that that's the real thing in life? That's your religion, the tarot? No. Tarot was developed in medieval times to represent the hero's journey, which really we're all on. We're all the hero of our own story, right? No matter how bad we are. Even the baddest think that they're the hero, right? So, excuse me for a second. Let me just put another log on here. A log. Stick. So, the first card in the major Arcana side of the tarot is the Fool. What does that represent? That's the beginning of the journey. That's the innocence. You know, a childlike wonder. But also a drive to do something, to go somewhere. And if you look at the card, I'll pop it up somewhere here, is the Fool. He's actually almost walking off of a cliff. Why? Because he's following his whims. Which, to most people, in reality, seems like such a foolish thing. You've got to have something to fall back on, right? But the Fool doesn't care about that. He lives outside of normal society, just like the Fool with the king, right? He doesn't apply to all of the normalcies as everyone else. He's kind of a weird person. But you say, oh, well, that's the beginning, though. That's the and it's not the first card. It's the beginning of the cards, but it's the zero card. Zero card, right? Which in medieval times was not a good number. It was almost like 13. I mean, 0 meant nothing, and nothing meant the devil, because everything is God, so nothing is the devil, right? But later on, if you look at it, the number 0, I mean, that's before they really had a lot of, I mean, they probably had negative numbers, but your average person didn't really know about the positive and negative numbers. We didn't have, in medieval England or Europe, we didn't have Pythagoras walking around everywhere. So, that 0 is in the middle of the negative and the positive. Is in the middle of the pair of opposites. Opposites. Another drink and another toad, why don't you? The pair of opposites, the duality of life. There's a duality in everything. Or is there? The duality are the two extremes on the end. Everything in the middle is the 0, right? But the 0 is so small. There's so many numbers that way. There's so many, well, they're all just subdivisions of the left and right. But if you're only working with left and right, what about up and down and forward and back? I mean, left and right is not even two-dimensional. It's one-dimensional. Anyway, I digress. The 0. And that's why I call myself the absolute 0. Get it? So the fool, in essence, is the one who stands in the middle between the two opposing sides. And if you think about it, a good fool, or a good... Nowadays, I would consider comedians to be the fools of our society. The ones who kind of break things down, the ones that can kind of look left and look right and see the weirdness on both sides. Like George Carlin. I mean, he might have been liberal, but he also made fun of liberals. He made fun of conservatives. And in a way, if you just listen to his comedy as a whole, you weren't sure what side he was on, because he kind of flip-flopped. And people consider those who flip-flop back and forth to be foolish. See, being a fool isn't really a horrible thing. It's just, you don't get no respect. So, since that's what kind of makes me tick, because I'm a performer, I really am. I mean, I could practice more. I definitely could, but when it comes to performance, man, there's just something. There's something about it. There's just something about it. And I can understand. I mean, I struggle with my own demons, like as we all do. But I can understand someone like, young Robert Downey Jr., who also was a great performer, great actor, great. And when you're on set, and you're being filmed, whoops, that's such a great thing. Such a great thing. But what happens the rest of the time when you're not performing? And you're not feeling great. You literally can't do it all the time. So, in order to keep that feeling going, keep that energy flowing, to make yourself feel that goodness, you do some drugs, you drink, you do some crazy sexual stuff, things like that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying people like that might have a proclivity to those sort of things. And it has to be watched, just like anything else, Things can be addictive, and people have to sort of regulate themselves. Regulators! Mount up. So, anyway, I just want to share with you guys that part of me, that's what makes me tick most of the time. That's what I found. I mean, and there's other things in life that I have. Obviously, it's not the only thing. And it can't be the only thing because, like I said, you can't do it all the time, so you gotta find other things, right? Sometimes you have to take a break from yourself. So basically, I want to have people on this show and figure out what makes them tick. And hopefully, eventually, I'll have a space to do this. I won't just be doing it in the backyard with campfire lighting. Oh, it's coming back. You can see me again? Hey. I'll have some people on here who you might not know. I'll have some people on here who you might know. But everyone's got a personal philosophy, whether they realize it or not. Some people make it easy and they kind of adhere to a religion or, you know, a philosophy of life, which is like a religion. It's like the same thing, pretty much. And also maybe have some levity, have some laughs. I mean, I might have some games. Oh, I got some things planned, but I know that I shouldn't just do this by myself all the time, because I don't think anyone wants to hear me talk all the time. Especially not my wife. But unfortunately, she does hear me all the time. Thing just won't stay lit, because that's me. I like to talk. And see, I love to talk, so this podcast thing might be good. You know, I wanted to start a podcast for a while. And I've told a lot of people that. I've kind of said it here and, oh, I would love to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast. And it never really came to fruition. You know, and it's not, part of it is being lazy, and part of it is I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. You know, a lot of people talk about all sorts of things. And there's not many subjects that I'm that interested in that I want to talk about it all the time. I want to change it up a little bit. I mean, geez, that seems boring to me, you know? Ugh, monotony, the same thing all the time. Oh my goodness, you know what? Hold on, I'm gonna go get a couple more logs and check what the time is. Hold on. 17 minutes in, almost 18. Okay, hold on. Will I get to half an hour? We shall see, we shall see. Okay, hold on. These might be a little wet, so they might pop a little bit. Hold on. Oh. Not gonna sing right now. There we go. There we go. So yeah, I mean, podcasting. I wanted to do one for a long time, and I said this to people and blah blah blah. And you know, I'm sure people are like, oh geez, yeah, here he goes, another project he wants to do, right? I was gonna have time for this, blah blah blah. Which actually brings me back to the card. Hey, let's bring the card back up. Wherever. You know, on this card, you see down below, way down, over by the feet of the fool, are the dogs that are nipping at his heels. What's that? Well, I guess you could say those are the people saying, hey, how can you do all this stuff? You're gonna follow your whim? Ha. Well, that's cute. That's fun. But, you know, we live in reality, so you can't just do stuff. You gotta do what everyone has to do. But there are niches Niches. Niche. Niche. I'm not sure which one's right. Niche kind of seems more of a douche thing to say, so I guess I'm a douche. Talking about niches, that's what most of these podcasts are, you know? And I blame Talking Dead. Chris Hardwick. Sorry, bud, you know, I like you and all. But all of a sudden it became this thing like, hey, we just watched this show for an hour. Now let's dissect it for an hour. Right afterwards, too. We're not going to wait. We're not going to let the audience think for themselves. We're not going to let them dissect it because we don't want them to get the wrong information. We don't want them to misconstrue anything or think that we're saying this when we're actually saying that. And, you know, really? You're guiding people through art? That's kind of weird. Because, sure, there might have been an intention, but that doesn't always mean that that's what it's going to mean to everybody. And by telling people exactly what you meant, and this is what you have to think about, when all of a sudden it takes their creativity away. You know, it's like, I've noticed that, okay, so people who aren't performers, people who aren't the fool, tend to get very inspired by their entertainment, very inspired by music, very inspired by movies, very inspired because it communicates to them well, right? And I think artists also are the same way. They get something from art and movies and art in general, but really the true inspiration for artists is life. And to most people, just life isn't inspiring enough for anything. You know, I mean, money is inspiring. Want of things is inspiring. Want of love is inspiring. Want of, you know, but an artist just involves himself with life, and all of a sudden, bing, something pops. It's tink. There's a connection, and they go, oh wow, if I did this, it would kind of mean this to me, and then they do it. But see, what's happened with entertainment, it's so commercialized that full expression has been choked. Which sucks, really does. You know, like, I saw an interview with Frank Zappa in the 80s, and he talked about the 60s and the 70s, how there was so much experimental stuff going on with art and music and things, and how that kind of started to dissipate after a while. And his explanation for it was, well, you know, back in the day, the record companies were run by businessmen who just wanted to make money. They didn't necessarily know about art or judge it in their way. You know, they just knew that if we can make something that the kids like or that people are going to enjoy, if we can sell something people are going to enjoy, they didn't make it. They said, we'll hire these artists, they'll do their thing. If people like it, hey, we get a lot of money, so we'll put a lot of backing into it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we move on to the next guy. But eventually what started to happen is musicians and artists and writers and things who didn't make it wanted to stay in the business, right? Even actors, they want to stay in the business, so they become a manager, or they become, you know, they work for the publishing company or things like that. They work for the record company. And now it becomes, they work their way up, and they become the bosses. Well, they have big opinions on the art. They know what they like, and they think they know what people are gonna like. I think this is the trend. What's the trends? What's going on with everyone? Now it sounds like I'm working at Walmart. What are people gonna want to buy, huh? Or oh, what should we promote? What should we put on sale? Hey, we should put this over by that because then they're gonna want to buy this with that. And that's what these people working for these companies started to do. Like, oh well, it's big boy bands. Let's do boy bands for a while, and then you saturate the market with these things, and then it kills whatever's going on. I mean, that's probably what happened with disco. It kind of seemed like people were just making disco to make disco, not, hey, these bands are disco bands and they're popular, or they're doing something and people seem to like it, so let's do it. They're like, no, we need to, everyone's doing disco, we need to do disco. It never works. It never works. And so if commercially we're taking your creativity out of things, then it's a lesser version of what it could have been. And in a way, it's less inspiring than it could have been to people. So, has this been creaking the whole time? Oh, jeez. So less inspiration means less energy, less thinking, less joy. Who are the real fools? The artists who just do it, who just feel it and do it, or the ones who are trying to tell them how they should be doing things. And I mean the new kind of fool, the idiots. The idiots are the ones that stifle the creative process. And it's funny when sometimes there's a creative person born to a family of maybe slightly creative people, but this person just can't really do anything else. It's not that they can't do anything else. It's that they don't really want to do anything else. And no matter how much they push themselves to try to do other things, it just doesn't take. And I feel that completely. Had many jobs where it's interesting at first, and once it's not interesting, I shut down, and start going into almost depression in a weird way, which sucks. What sucks about the whole thing, though, is, if I can't find something creative that, can either make me money or give me some sort of recognition or anything like that, I'm afraid that I'll just sort of waste away eventually, But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop creating. I can't. I can't stop. I'm addicted. I'm addicted, Ted. I mean, there's worse things to be addicted to, right? Way worse things. So if you have an artist in your family that is addicted to creating things, and you think, geez, why are they wasting their life? At least they're not doing the alternative. Wasting your life doing art is way better than wasting your life doing heroin. Or only playing video games all the time, living in that world where, someone comes home from work and, geez, I hate, and they just turn it on, and that's it. That's all they do. That's it. Nothing else. Hey, you wanna come watch this show? No, oh man, I gotta win. I gotta win, and that's the drive. And with an artist, sometimes that's the drive too. But if you're only creating art just to win, just to get up there, just to be someone, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it for the right reasons. And if that's the deal breaker for you, what if you never get there? Right? I had to learn that hard lesson. And I did. But I realized that I don't care. I mean, I care if I make money from my art or for the things I do, but really, I'm going to be doing it anyway, so whatever. So what makes you tick? What makes you inspired? What drives you? Well, tell me. Right? I love feedback. I love interaction. You wanna dispute anything I said? That's fine. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm an expert. I mean, I might be slightly more intelligent than the average bear, but that doesn't mean I know everything. Most of the time, I know absolute zero. The first step to enlightenment is knowing that you know nothing. And boy, do I know that. I know nothing about humility. And I know nothing about hosting a podcast. This is the first time. Like I said, I had some ideas before, and I tried to do a couple of Like I tried to do a driving home podcast from my old work. I would just set the phone up, like by the speedometer, and just talk about shit for 15 minutes. But it's really hard to drive around and then come up with shit to say, like that's entertaining and isn't gonna have a lull and isn't gonna be like stupid. I bet you the wife is wondering where I am. I said I was gonna go outside, but I've probably been out here over an hour. Just sitting by the fire, yo, talking to all my peeps. Hey, my peeps. Actually, I hate peeps. Oh man, they're the worst. The worst. They're horrible. Too much sugar. Americans like pure sugar. It's like just grab a handful and I used to know a kid who would do stuff like that. He'd take the creams and the sugars and just oh man, pretty nasty. It's a lot of calories to burn off. And you didn't have to pay for it. Usually they were on the table, Anyway, all right, I think that's enough. I'm your host, Lucas J. Hunt, and thank you for tuning in to the Philosophical Fools podcast. All my fools, my kingdom of fools. I'll see you later, okay? Bye.